I can't believe they did it, but they did it. Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge from a galaxy far, far away. Jaime En Fuego here, back to conclude my coverage on Enfuegotainment, my namesake program all about Season 2 of The Mandalorian. That's right, we are talking Chapter 16, The Rescue, directed by Peyton Reed, and concluding the second season, as I mentioned. And I wasn't initially going to do this, but this has to be spoilers because there was so much major shizzle that transpired in this as far as, clarification about things, surprise character appearances, things being completely confirmed as, back in canon, stuff like that. So, yes, at the end of the previous episode, we had another little side mission. Bill Burr helped get the coordinates so they could get on Moff Gideon's ace and get back to retrieving our little Grogu guy. Yes, that was basically, despite being a memorable enough episode with a very interesting dramatic turn from Bill Burr, I didn't love it. I wasn't over the moon for it, but it furthered the plot and it basically set up everything for this final confrontation with Mando getting back his kid and going toe-to-toe with Moff Gideon. And I have to say that they really sidelined the whole name of Grogu after revealing it in that Ahsoka episode. They just kind of went back to saying, the child, the kid, and the little green dude, so on. So that was just a thing that I noticed in this particular episode. But yes, there is re-teaming with Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan, so that happens, and we still have Fennec, we still have Boba Fett, obviously Cara Dune. We have our ragtag team that had been previously assembled all in place, and they basically, we start with just getting right after Gideon. And I must admit, despite some very solid directing from Peyton Reed, it was really the story in the back half of this that nailed it home. They didn't really give us a lot of extensive insight as to how Moff Gideon came upon the Darksaber, aside from the fact that we know that he obviously won it in some sort of duel in time past with Bo-Katan, so that's something to keep in mind. And Gideon ends up having this duel once they get to his ship along with Mando, and Mando, he bests him as you would probably anticipate. And he is apparently the new rightful owner of the Darksaber. He tries to relinquish it to Bo-Katan, so that's obviously not happening. So is Mando the new rightful ruler of Mandalore, or what is left of that planet? I guess the third season, when we see it in like a year, is gonna presumably give us some answers. But the big thing, there's a couple, but definitely we thought we saw Dark Troopers, not to be confused with Death Troopers, who are humans, Dark Troopers, and there were 3 different iterations of those back in the Legends. I think going all the way back to the Dark Forces video game, if I remember correctly. But the third incarnation that I was pretty sure we saw taking him 2 episodes ago in the Robert Rodriguez episode where we got the Boba Fett reveal, I was like, oh yeah, I think those are Dark Troopers that took him. Lo and behold, they were, and they even give the clarification that, yes, they're Phase 3 Dark Troopers, so there's no human component at all. They're all droid, and so, yeah, these are, at least according to Legends lore, like the biggest and most badass troopers, so to speak, because they're not human, and they're just insanely weaponized and everything. But the person who shows up and basically takes down all of them, I guess when you find out who that person is in a certain black glove, that makes it very evident. There was a lot of speculation, especially post-Ahsoka episode. They were like, okay, we knew that Grogu had to make some sort of contact with some of the few Jedis that are actually left in the galaxy, and you're like, okay, well, we know there's Ahsoka. That obviously wasn't the case. We assume that despite being out with Thrawn, that Ezra Bridger is another. Voss is one. Obviously, if you're going to mention the Dark Disciple novel, and he also spent some time on the Clone Wars series. But really, there's not a lot of potential options aside from all of the fan service begging of people saying, pull a Maul and bring back Samuel L. Jackson, you know, as Mace Windu. I still do not think that that is happening at any particular moment. We've got the peanut gallery chuckling over there. But yeah, I had hopes and wonder as to who it could potentially be. Would they pull a Princess Leia at the end of Rogue One? And they did it, guys. They most def brought in Luke fucking Skywalker. And while the movement was still a little stilted, and I could pick this apart, but really, when you see that X-Wing emerge, it made the absolute most sense, because I still was thinking, Ezra Bridger. No, they're obviously saving him, along with Sabine, in my estimation, and Thrawn, presumably, for this Ahsoka series that they made mention of during that big Disney announcement shareholders meeting a little over a week ago. So it only made sense for this almost deep fake sort of situation to go down, but he looked good, from like the little like mole on the upper lip and everything to facial expressions, and the fact that they had Mark Hamill. I don't know if they, like, you know, caught his movements and like did that mocap sort of like, you know, I don't know, overlaying or whatever the hell you would describe it as far as technical terms go, but they list him in the credits, so I am positive that he at least returned to reprise the voice role. He doesn't have a lot to say, but as far as just storyline continuity, it made the absolute most sense for him to be the one that comes to take and train our little homeboy here, especially with his connection with, you know, Yoda, and Yoda being the one that trained him on Dagobah and everything, that, you know, after Obi-Wan was finally gone. So I know some people are going to have major gripes with this because of the fact that, so Mandalorian was initially just championed by so many because it was taking a step away from the Skywalker saga and from all of those connective tissues to the original trilogy and even the prequel and the sequel trilogy, because at this point, in just proper canon continuity, they describe it as the Skywalker saga, 9 films of the Skywalker saga. Even though, I mean, yeah, I guess Ben Solo is a Skywalker, or at least like half-blood in that regard. So yeah, I understand if people are like, no, it shouldn't have gone back to that. It should have stayed its own very grounded, very separate sort of situation. I understand that criticism, but I don't think a being of just the M count, as you know, the way that they're abbreviating midichlorians and stuff now, that this series has done such a great job of bridging the original series, some stuff from the prequels, and everything that Filoni did such a terrific job of fleshing out in between the prequels and the OG trilogy. And it's working as a great gateway to the sequel trilogy, because aside from the novels, which I still haven't read Bloodline or Lost Stars or, you know, Aftermath or any of that stuff, so I know that they really did their damnedest to give some insight about that. I mean, the most that I've done is I'm almost finished with Last Shot, the solo novel that talks about, you know, the Battle of Jakku a few years later, or excuse me, a few years before, and it's very much like New Republic centric, and I'm intrigued by that era, but nowhere near as much as, you know, between 3 and 4. And so this series, I think, despite the fact that it was so just intriguingly segregated initially, I am personally, and art is subjective obviously, I'm personally all for just kind of filling in the gaps and connecting those respective dots a little bit. And so for that reason, yeah, save the Ezras and Sabines and all that stuff for the Ahsoka series, especially since so many are still unfamiliar with her in the live action scenario. She's only been in 1 episode. And yes, Luke made sense, and I geeked out. R2 shows up, as he obviously should. That made total sense. And yeah, I mean, despite not loving a lot of the action or even a lot of the storytelling, some of the dialogue too was a little drab in this episode, but it was so nice to see little dude back. And when Pedro Pascal takes off the helmet, and we know, yes, he wasn't doing like an extensive amount of the stunts or anything like that. He had a lot of stand-ins and it was just voiceover, but just the emotion in his eyes and the interaction with our little puppet Grogu here, it was heart-wrenching. Like, myself and Lady Catherine were in tears practically just seeing this going down, and just that farewell. And I must speculate, and that's why I'm here talking about this, that I don't know when we're going to see him again on this show. I mean, was this the conclusion of like a big 16 chapter story arc, especially since we have a year to wait for more of The Mandalorian? I can't help but wonder. I'm really kind of curious, and yes, we did get the obvious return of Bo-Katan, as I mentioned. Although she very similar to where like Boba is kind of an afterthought until something I have to mention here at the very end. But yeah, both Bo-Katan and Boba Fett. Pretty much everybody aside from our special guest star of Luke showing up at the very end, and the revelation of Dark Trooper Phase 3, and just the sayonara to our little man here going off with Luke to be trained presumably. Everything else aside from those big pivotal beats, it felt very much just kind of by the numbers, trying to get us there, trying to get us to these big revelations, these big conclusions, these big just finales of storytelling, at least as far as this iteration of the show thus far. We know that there was a lot of other stuff coming. I did an entire video about it here, and the one thing that was not dropped, and that's what I have to mention at the end here, and that's why I had to go spoilers more than anything else. I could have tiptoed around Luke, I could have tiptoed around a few other things, but I knew something was up when there was no awesome, painting, production design things that they have ended every single episode of this show with, all 15 up until this point. And when they're just doing more traditional credits and a very interesting sort of score, I was like, there's gotta be a like end credits, post credits, whatever you'd like to classify them as. Sure enough, there is. And when I saw the exterior of Jabba's palace, I was like, no way! I started freaking out, man. I was like, okay, obviously this is Boba coming back to raise some hell or do something, and such amusing fan service. Jedi is my favorite. Return of the Jedi, to be specific, is my favorite. No, Last Jedi. Return of the Jedi is my personal favorite Star Wars film of all time, and you see Bib Fortuna, and he's all chunked out Jabba status, and he's sitting on Jabba's throne ruling, and there is a emergence of somebody, and immediately, just like me, you're probably thinking, oh man, it's Boba Fett, but Fennec is leading the parade, at least initially, and they basically walk in and take over the place. Bib Fortuna's like, oh, I heard many things about you, Boba Fett, many rumors, whatever, just like we all did, because he escaped from the Sarlacc pit in, I think it was Tales from Jabba's Palace, that collection. But as far as like new canon Disney continuity, we had no idea. Obviously, they have been cherry picking and choosing everything from Admiral Thrawn to the aforementioned Dark Troopers, And this is no exception with the fact that Boba is in fact alive. He shoots down Tubby Fortuna, and then he basically sits down with some swagger on Jabba's throne, and then they drop the bombshell of the Book of Boba Fett, December 2021. Now, this is the last thing that I have to just conclude all of this with before I say 4 out of 5 Fuego Fireballs, most friggin' deaf, man. This was a very satisfying episode, even if it lagged here and there, and it was kind of just trying to get us to these big, just eye-dropping, jaw smashing on the floor sort of situations. 4 out of 5, certified Fuego, most deaf. But the book of Boba Fett is where it gets me curious, because I saw way earlier this year, maybe it was even after the end of the first season of this show, that on Audible there was a pre-order for a Mandalorian novel that was coming out. And I think it was originally supposed to come out this fall, and then it got delayed a few times. Now it's apparently coming out next fall. I want to say like next November. It's in my wish list, so I'm not going to pre-order it this far out. But I'm wondering, because, originally we were supposed to have a Boba Fett just movie with Josh Trank, I think, was attached, and then he had all of his personal problems and the failure of the Fantastic Four, whatever. And then they were saying, oh, Boba Fett series. So I don't know if this is just a reinvigorating of the Boba Fett series, or if that aforementioned Mandalorian television show, or excuse me, the Mandalorian book that ties in with the television show is in fact what they just revealed at the end of this. So I'm very curious, I'm very satisfied, and we have a lot of time to just kind of simmer and speculate and all of that other stuff. So yeah, man, this was the fact that they actually went for it. They didn't have Sebastian Stan in there like so many people were really wondering if they would go for like a Luke-alike, Luke-alike. But yeah, they didn't take that route, and they didn't go for like a recast like we saw in Solo. So I don't know. It made the most sense. I was very happy. I was very satisfied. What did all of you think? That is what I am more curious about than anything else. It's like 2 in the morning here, deadly desert time in Arizona, and I just had to film this and give my fresh thoughts right off the bat. So yes, myself and my little child here, extend a grande gracias for tuning into this. I've been Jaime En Fuego, and you can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on the YouTubies, and a like, a share, and a subscribe will allow me to get more little blue macaroons for homeboy here. And yes, there's lots of other Star Wars coverage on here, including reviews of everything from Dooku Jedi Lost to Master and Apprentice, Catalyst, all of the films, bunch of the comics. I've been working my way through chronologically through canon, the official new Disney canon. I just finished watching Rebels the other day. It was a tremendous experience, and I cannot wait to see what they do with, you know, that... what the Rangers of the New Republic, I think is what they're calling it, along with Ahsoka, along with jumping back to the High Republic stuff with Acolyte. I can't wait for next month. We have a new iteration, a new era of Star Wars as far as, you know, a couple novels and those 2 comic series with Marvel and IDW. I will most definitely be reviewing both of those. And besides all of the geeking out, I do reviews of the, you know, dramas, indie art house stuff, and I will be doing all kinds of Oscar coverage as we segue into the first quarter of 2021. Hopefully a better year than the insanity that has been 2020. And yeah, if you like spectacular shizzle, definitely need to jump over to youtube.com/thehorrorshow channel, just like you see below. That's the main YouTube gig where basically myself, Cecil Laird, Marsha Parker, Robert Duell, and Susie Van Slotta, along with a few special guests here and there, basically do a new episode every single day. I have a weekly Stephen King show. We do reviews, the trailer reactions, unboxings, video game let's plays, you name it, pretty much everything under the scarific sun. If for whatever reason you are stumbling upon my channel here and unfamiliar with the other stuff that I do here on the interwebs. So, I've been Fuego, y'all have been Rad Status, and until the Reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, Cinemigos, constant readers and viewers alike say thank you for accompanying me to a galaxy far, far away these last 8 weeks. It has been a ton of fun, and there is so much more coming in the near future. So until we get to share more of this palaver, I hope that it's sooner rather than later. It's late, y'all, but yes, thanks so very much once again, and yes, until then, stay home and watch more Star Wars, Grogu and Star Wars. I miss you, man.